thank you very much for joining in today, Animesh.
Right. Thank you, Celeste, for inviting.
All the people who are watching this second episode of Real Talk, we welcome you all as well. And today we have Animesh. Animesh is from Ripple's Learning Solution in Bangalore, and being part, and he's a co-founder. So being part of an organization that has been working in the domain of human resources (HR) for the last 18 years or plus, like right, Animesh? More than
Right.
18
Yes.
years. And
Absolutely. 18.
yeah, so I thought he would be a great person to give us a few tips about how we can, as HR professionals, grow ourselves in this industry because there's a lot happening around us. And in a few minutes, we'll have Anime shed some light on the HR industry and the current trends and how people can build their skills to be ready for the future. Just before that, let me just introduce Animesh. And apart from working uh, with the HR industry, he also has opportunities to talk to a lot of HR management professionals, the CHROs. And of course, he will be able to shed a lot of light on what is the expectations right at the top. He has not just done that, but also facilitated a lot of sessions for more than 10,000 professionals, which means he also has a view of the ground reality of what's happening currently in the human resource professional domains. What kind of skill set they have right now, and what are the gaps that need to be fulfilled for organizations to make them fit for the changes that are happening around us. So thank you very much. And one thing that we share in common is traveling and wildlife. So that's another great thing. So Animesh,
Thank you,
we will
Celeste,
quickly.
for the introduction. I think, thank you. Thank you so much for inviting as well.
You,
Yeah.
you're most welcome, Animesh. So let's get right into it. Over these years, 18 years is a long time. How have you
Right.
seen the HR evolve over these times? Like, what kind of competencies and skills have changed since
Mhm.
you started?
So Celeste, I think the world of HR is fascinating, right? And if you look at not only recently, but if you look at evolution of human resource as in whole, that the journey
Mm,
has been truly incredible because from the time when you had second industrial revolution and democracy is evolving the world and labor laws coming into picture and people largely handling, you needed a support function which could take care of your labor laws or employee welfare, etc., to a time when HR was known as PM and IR, which is personal management and industrial relation, where apart from labor laws, you had administrative activities, to the way we see modern day human resource, where we had comp and ben and employee relations and performance management and training and development becoming part of it, to a time now in last
mm,
decade and a half, when we are seeing the strategic part of human resource evolving. I think it is quite a few shades and quite a journey for HR, and I think it has evolved for good. The beauty of what's happening with human resource now is that I see lot of focus of organizations now on considering a human resource more than a support function, right?
mm-hmm.
They consider HR to be something which is aligned to business, and if it's
Yeah,
used rightly and if it does the right things for the business, then it can really be a tool to drive business outcomes in different ways and means that is possible. And that is where you have seen human resource business partner evolving. That is where you have seen HR analytics and people
yeah,
analytics evolving, and that is where you have seen uh, you know elements of the structure of HR moving from, let's say, task based or skill based to competency based HR practices, where the what you are measuring, what you are driving, what you are creating, what you are implementing being much more measurable than how it was before, right? So
Mm.
when I look at the journey, I think, and if I have to single it out in terms of how of what as HR professionals, as HR managers, as HR heads, we need to look at in terms of driving human resource function, then I would say three things that would allow us to drive HR in the most strategic way that aligns itself with business outcomes. And that is, one is to uh, transition to competency based HR practices. The second one
Right.
is to drive align yourself in a way that you are able to support business goals and business outcomes, and just like how HRBP does that, and also move away from gut based decision making to data driven and evidence based decision making, and bring in the element of analytics into
Yeah.
HR processes and systems. And I think these three things, if in combination implemented in different COEs within HR, whether it's talent acquisition or performance management or employee engagement or L&D,
Mm.
I think there is a lot of value that we can add to the business. Yes, certainly.
Amazing, amazing how the industry has actually evolved. So it has branched out into so many different functions, that there are so many different opportunities that are at hand. And what you said, I completely believe in this, that it has to be a competency based model and focus on business goals, completely evidence based and data driven. What kind of opportunities do you see for HR professionals today, both for aspiring new professionals and the ones that have already been there and spent a long time? Like, you do see people, in an organization for maybe 10 years and 5 years. So, what kind of opportunities do you see for them?
I mean, there are ample opportunities. It's, I think, again, for anybody, whether it's a working HR professional or if someone is aspiring to be a HR professional, it's important that they have a clear growth path,
Hmm.
that they have. They can foresee. And when I say that, you need an approach where you first figure out what your strength areas are. And human
Okay.
resource being such a diverse function, I mean, because if you look at entire employee touch points, entire employee journey, from
Hmm.
from uh, from hire to retire or hire to fire or from entry to exit, whatever you call, is human resource. So I see a lot of strengths getting aligned.
Yeah.
Even numerical strengths get aligned when you look at data and analytics or comp and pen, or topics like this. So whatever your strengths are, I think you need to find your forte in human resource. That is very important. You need to imagine yourself working in a certain kind of culture, certain kind of company, doing certain things, and you need to research that job well. You need to know the job description, you need to know the job specifications, you need to know the job outcomes, you need to know what you need to know to get into a role, into a set of companies that you aspire to be. And if you have planned it in that way, and if you have acquired the right skills and the right competencies and right understanding, then I'm quite certain that this journey would be much easier. My worry is that if even if we look at career development for aspiring HR professionals, remember,
Hmm.
development always happens after research, right?
Yeah.
And if there is not enough research that you have put in for your career, I think that development is going to take time. Because one worry that I have is that academia, I mean, maybe I shouldn't be so harsh, but the reality is that the academia has failed students and industry at so many levels,
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
it's I mean, for example, look at a topic like organizational behavior, or if you connect it to industry, then how employee relation works, etc. We are still teaching Maslow's hierarchy, right, which
Mm.
was probably drafted in 1983, and it's a wonderful theory, and I think I mean it was something that I really scored well on in college. But reality is that things have inverted. Look at millennials and Gen Z, right? Do they
Mm.
really fit in into the
Yeah.
Maslow's hierarchy today, right? And if instead of writing and passing examinations based on that literature and not being exposed to what's happening in the real on ground in cutting edge the organizations and companies and then there is a huge gap. So you're
Yeah.
investing 2 years into education, and when you're coming out you have understanding of the topic, but you do not have understanding of what's getting applied, right? And that's my worry for aspiring HR professionals. So it's very, very important that you research roles, and then you develop your skills to fit into those roles, and then you reach out to those organizations using innovative methods. And there are so many ways to reach out. I mean, LinkedIn is just one, but there are so many ways to reach out to organizations and decision makers directly, right, today.
Mm.
And then when you have those 15 or 20 or 30 minutes in the interview room is your moment, right?
Yeah.
And that
That's
is
true.
where you ensure that you are able to plan and execute and make your dream a reality. So for aspiring, I think this is very, very important, right? And now coming to people who are experienced, Celeste, I think I see them at crossroads, and that's again largely because now I mean, I don't want to sound negative here, but if you look at organizations, uh, we have to look at have organizations really spent upskilling their HR team. Right?
Hmm. That's
Have their
true.
focus
That is
has been
absolutely true.
upskilling as much as they do the operations, or let's say their core functions. Has that been the
Processes.
focus? Right? So
Yes.
somewhere organizations have not gone about upskilling HR, the teams which are the people, professionals who are managing human resources department, and then that has left people to learn on their own, right?
Yes.
And they've figured it out by interaction, and they have figured it out by learning from their seniors. They've figured it out with discussions, and there has been an element, but that has led to uh, losing a lot of time, right? So if I, as a HR professional, while starting my career, I said that and my plan was that I would be a HR manager in 5 years. Probably it has taken me a 8 or a 10 year to be that, because figuring out things have. And again, if you want to catch up, I think this is the moment, because this is where the industry is changing. In fact, I
Yeah.
always tell this when I'm teaching or when I'm interacting or when I'm consulting, that we it's like we have dealt with two eras too soon. The first is pre-pandemic HR practices and the post-pandemic HR
Too
practices,
soon.
and
Absolutely.
second one is pre-AI and analytics and post-AI and analytics,
Yeah.
right?
No,
So,
yes.
so it's time to unlearn and relearn and upskill, because the three things that I mentioned: how well you know competency-based HR practices. A simple
And when you
element would be,
said,
yeah,
yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
you know, look at if you mark yourself in a scale of 1 to 10, mark yourself how well you understand competency based HR practices, how well
Yes.
you know competency models, competency framework, competency validation, competency identification, writing competencies, how well you know that, right? How well you know competency mapping, how well you know uh, uh, data, how well you know analytics, how well you know the models, the application of these elements. And again, rate yourself in a scale of 1 to 10, and again, look at how well you understand business goals, how much of business acumen you have for the teams that you are supporting, right?
Yeah.
And how much strategic understanding you have of bringing and driving the KRAs and KPAs and KPIs of the business through intelligent, customized HR solutions that you can provide, which are not, again, gut based but evidence based. And now, if you rate yourself in these 5 or 6 or 7 parameters, as I mentioned, and if you're scoring really well, then you are in there. But if you are not scoring that well, then I think experience has not done it for you till now, right? And it's high
Yeah.
time you again, uh, you know, invest in in yourself, invest in reaching out, invest in learning, invest in gauging, invest in applying what you have learned, invest, and then accelerate your career, right? And then have that throttle on that gets you at a much faster pace where you want to be. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree with your thoughts about the academia and what is happening in the business in terms of upskilling people, and also the fact that the, the pre and the post pandemic situation in any organization for that matter. I mean, we're talking about HR domain today, but in any organization, the pace at which an individual has to change, learn, has exponentially increased. So it's no more like I'm going to spend like 1 year to learn. In 1 year, you'd be at some other point altogether. So it's not a straight path.
Mhm.
It's a winding road, and you really have to not just accustom to new practices that are coming in the market, but also you need to experience things in a very very quick manner. It's no more There's no more time really
Mhm.
left for individuals to spend time, anticipating something to happen, and then they are going to spend
Mhm.
time learning. So my next question to you is, when you go to the chros and when you have conversations with them, what kind of issues they bring up in terms of what is the gap and what are the expectations really from their HR professionals. I mean, I'm talking about all domains.
So I think one very good thing that has happened is when now that we have CHROs. I mean, if you look at as a designation, which was not there some time back, right? When we
Yeah.
started our consulting practices, hardly any organization would have CHRO. It would probably stop at director HR or vice president HR, etc. Right? So now at least we have the C-suite. We have a HR representation, and this is true
We
for
have
so many
ideas.
organizations today, isn't it? Right. So one key element, I think that I think there are, because when you look at from a top-bottom approach, then what are they really looking at driving, right? They are
Hmm.
the key challenge that they have is how the HR department and all of the verticals in human resource, how is it able to align itself with the business to be able to cater to the business need and deliver HR solutions in a way where it is able to impact business result. Right? Now, this is the
Yeah.
more uh, underlying need of any CHRO today, right?
Hmm.
And if I dig slightly deeper into it, it can be a very very small issue, like for a department improving the CSAT score, which is a critical department where maybe the business partner team or the talent development team is able to deliver a customized solution which is able to improve customer satisfaction, and that's one of the metric that you want to track, to an element of driving something as critical as a change management initiative, which completely aims at changing perceptions and culturally impact the organization or alliance itself in terms of what the vision of the organization is, right?
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
uh, and and if you look at that, all of it has to be kept while improving and enhancing the productivity levels. It is to be kept in what the costs have to be kept in mind, right?
Hmm.
The outcomes have to be kept in mind. The solutions have to be something that can actually function. So whichever area of HR you look at, I think uh, the CHRO is looking at having an element where the folks who are reporting, even at a entry level or even at a executive level or even at somebody who's maybe assisting or even managing a team, is to bring have the have the understanding of aligning itself with the uh, uh, with the goal of what eventually has to be achieved. So, for example, if we are talking about talent acquisition, then are we hiring the best, right? Are we using the right tools to hire? Are we using, let's say,
Mm.
competency based hiring or BI as a tool to, get this element in? Are we driving good communication projects when it comes to performance management, or, let's say, competencies being identified, evaluated, etc., right? Are we using enough data and evidence in our discussions in teams, right? All of it can be small things, but largely when you look at it from a top to bottom approach of a CHRO, the key is to solve organizational problems through HR initiatives, right? To make HR align itself in a way where it is able to give evidence-based solutions back to business. It is able to enhance involvement and productivity and a lot of other things. At the same time, they have to also now, in especially in a post-pandemic world, also in a world that now is being disrupted by AI, uh, you know, change the traditional approach of working, come up with uh, 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 policies and procedures that apply on a larger audience, with different
Mm.
mindsets, right?
Mm.
Cultural interventions, enhancing employee experience, hybrid working. So again, what is important for your organization? What is the challenges that you face? Is what a CHRO is looking for today, right? It is looking for being a thought leader in an organization and
Mm.
being able to, uh, uh, as I said, to bring a team which works together, though it might be different COEs and different center of excellences working in, but when it comes to finally achieving it for the business, they are able to, align and deliver, and then cater to the bigger organization issues and problems, right? Like for as I said, whether it's change management or evidence-based decision making or enhancing productivity levels, or even as simple as, communicating something, or introducing new policies and creating a new age organization, and which moves with time, which doesn't stop. So all of it, I think, there is a countless problems that I would not say problems,
Yeah.
countless challenges and interesting things that, and it differs from different industries. For example, if you go to an IT industry,
Yeah.
the discussion is so different from in somebody in aviation, somebody in hospitality. It's so different when you look at somebody in manufacturing, or in pharma. So again, it is about the larger business goals that they are looking at achieving, and how they are leveraging their department and its intellect and its capability, in terms of being able to deliver that, right? So that is what CHROs are largely.
So now I have a two-dimensional question here. One is in respect to the management of
Hmm.
HR within an organization, and since
Hmm.
you work with a gamut,
Hmm.
a bouquet of different organizations,
Hmm.
including the government, do you think they're aware of the emerging technologies?
So I think governments all across need to catch up, right? A lot of times, being in India, when we interact with the government in India, we sense that there is a lag, right? But it's the same everywhere, right? We have in being
Yeah.
in CHRMP, we have interacted with government officials from so many countries, right? Developed economies and fast growing economies, etc. I think they need to catch up a lot, right? In terms of what's happening in human resource. Do I see intention? Yes, I do see intention. Do I see speed? No, I somewhere see that the speed is slightly, or maybe considerably less than what it should be, right? So yes, there is intention. There is lack of speed, but yes, if intention is there and there are people who are involved, then certainly, that is something that can happen. I think what they respond to, in 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 a uh, in a faster manner, is when when the need is deep and it's coming from a quarter where it aims at solving uh, the government's problem, like for example, employment, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
for example, the country's or the a particular industry's competitiveness with the world, right? Yeah, and when that comes into picture, I think actions are much faster, right? Yeah, and policy decisions are taken, and I think HR has a role to play in it, because whether you talk about laws of the modern world, whether you talk about compliances of the modern world, whether you talk about the the kind of workforce we need to create, the competitive edge countries should have, uh, competing with each other and having a healthy mindset throughout. I think HR has a role to play in terms of policy decisions being made by government, certainly.
Is it the same temperature in the private sector also?
No, I think private sector are much faster to respond to this. I mean, yes, there are giants who take time to move, right? And there are certain way things are happening. Uh, One thing that I've seen with a lot of organizations is that they have hired amazing uh, teams and consultants and companies who have gone about setting great structures for them. However, they have failed to upskill their HR team to that structure, right? So that
Right.
they can
Yes.
really drive that thing on ground, right? So you have
Yeah.
best of companies in the world who have come up and set up the performance management structure and the HRIS and the hiring the entire hiring framework, and everything has been taken care of wonderfully well. But then
Yeah.
people who are driving it are not equipped enough to utilize it fully, right? And I think that is where private sector has lagged a bit. But otherwise, I think their speed is much faster. And if there is a problem, then the time taken to address that is also much shorter, right? And initiatives are taken, and especially now that budgets have been democratized, and
Mm.
you have tech teams which can make it their own decisions, and you have uh, operations which can make its own decisions, and so from that way, I think uh, even if the problem is not organization specific but team specific, they have been able to respond and solve that problem, right?
Right.
So from that aspect, I think they have been much faster.
And so, what is the ground reality in terms of HR professionals? Two things. Are they aware? Do they have the intention to change?
So I think HR professionals have been phenomenal in terms of doing the tasks that have been assigned to them, right?
Hmm.
So if today, if I largely look at a HR leader or anybody, and even an HR executive or anybody who has been given a task that do A and B and C and D, then they have been great in terms of executing that, right? They have been great in terms of managing uh, and delivering back to the business of what their immediate need has been, right? And this is wonderful because I think I think that this does add a lot of value for the
Hmm.
organization, because they are able to foresee HR as a what as a team which is able to deliver on time and trust. I mean, my understanding is that HR has been, it's like on time performance has been much better than a lot of other departments, right? That is one very good part about human resource and the professionals that are working, and
Well, that's
thumbs up to them for the kind of synergy that we have created with the organization. Where they lack is having an understanding of the strategic element of why they are doing it, uh, the best practices of how it could have been done, right? Because the same thing would be done in a much simpler way somewhere else, right? With
yeah.
much lesser budgets, much lesser time, in a much better way. So things have happened, but have they happened in the best possible manner? Mostly no, right? There is
Yeah,
always scope. Yeah.
that was exactly my next question to you, because there's so many different institutions that are offering you these HR certifications, which mostly are academia. And when you look at HR professional, they're pretty much at that level of, okay, let's go for the least budget and see what's happening there and figure out. And when they realize that this is not the answer to their question, they're like, okay, now I've lost so much of money as well, and I haven't got what I wanted, or I don't know if I've got what I needed. So, in that sense, what would you recommend people to really do to be able to identify the right kind of training program or upskilling program rather
Mm,
for
mm.
themselves?
Right. So I always recommend. So again, coming back to academy, I think I have academicians are wonderful people. I mean, I have had some great interaction and talk, and I would also call myself an academician, putting them in the same shoes because. So I have there is something so look at what's happening in colleges today or even the best of colleges, like you pick up the top universities across the globe. uh, the way you move up the ladder in a college is by learning more, right? So you do a PhD, let's say, right? And then you move
Mm,
from a level 1 to a level 2. You from a, let's
mm,
say, a lecturer to you become a professor and X and Y and Z. But look at the time taken to do a PhD, right? We're
mm.
talking about a global average of 5 to 7 years, right?
Absolutely.
So if I choose a topic today and I finish that topic, my thesis in three, let's say, even if I do it really fast, it would be 3 years, but on an average, let's say it's taking 5 years, not 7 years, right? How relevant would that topic be in 5 years, right?
Absolutely. Rightly
And
pointed.
yeah, and by the time and I do a wonderful thesis, which is really done well with such great caselets and bringing in perspective even from the industry. By the time it becomes part of academia teaching it, it takes another 10 years,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
so I have done research, I have brought in that up, it has become popular, and by the time somebody learns, who's joining a academic course even in the best university, whether it's a graduation or a post graduation or even if it's a certification program from academia, the lag is 10 to 15 years,
Yeah.
which basically what you're learning in terms of a case discussion or a caselet or a case study or anything, right? Something
Yeah.
that's a good takeaway, right? It's we are talking about 2015 and 2010 and 2011 when industry has look at the pace with which the industry has changed
Yeah. That's true.
and look at how so if that becomes much faster, much quicker, I think academia
Mm,
will have a chance to catch up with industry.
yeah.
And if they do not get that chance, then they would not have that thing to catch up with industry. And that's why I always recommend when you choose a training program, right? Look at do not look at big names that are offering, let's say, certifications or courses, right? Do not look at huge investments, right, that you will make, right? Uh, Learning now is much faster, much quicker. It is much sooner, and you cannot do an, let's say, an MBA today or a big certification of year and a half, investing hundreds or thousands of dollars, and then uh, live on it for next 20, 25 years of your career. Gone
Yeah.
are those days, right? So
Yes.
you
You
have to
become
constantly
irrelevant.
upskill yourself, right?
Yes.
In beginning you may have to choose slightly broader or larger programs which are, let's say, 3 months or 6 months, but as you go up the ladder, you it will end up being 3 day 4 day workshops, 5 day workshops, or 2 day
Exactly.
workshops, or and but it has to be every year. You should have a
Yeah.
learning budget for yourself every year. And I'll tell you, not because I represent, let's say, a certification body. Pick up a profile of a CHRO today. Pick up 10 profiles of 10 CHROs today, right? And if, or just go to LinkedIn and do that, right? That's not, I mean, information is everywhere, right? And look at how much investment they have done in terms of time, effort, energy, money, in terms of upskilling themselves.
Yeah.
On an average, if I have to apply data on, let's say, 100 CHRO profiles, you'd realize that in a career spanning 15 to 20 years, they have upskilled themselves with at least 10 to 15 training programs or certifications, which has gotten a mention somewhere, right? Apart from,
Mm,
so that is very important, right? Because
mm,
that
that
gives
is
you
true.
a view. And again, I'll relate it back to, imagine something, a great thing is happening in one part of the world, but it's not happening in your organization. Now, you're not exposed to how employee experience is being uplifted, how cultural propositions are being managed, how analytics solved such a big problem of, let's say, attrition or offer drop rates or cost of hire or something else, right? And now, the moment you're exposed to that, you have a possibility of bringing in terms of how you're doing it, right? So that is
Yes,
very
absolutely.
important. I think that is extremely important, that you constantly update yourself. And certification programs is a way, chrmp certainly is a way, but then you also have so many other ways of learning, right?
Yes.
Invest in learning, invest your uh, time in learning, and have that approach, and then I think you would really be able to be that leader, that HR leader that organizations desire for, right? So that is something that I
Yeah, and
would
that's
say.
exactly why the whole idea of real talk also came about, because what we found was that people were too excited about picking up a course, not knowing what they are going to achieve out of it.
Mm,
And when you talk to real life industry leaders and experts, you understand that the relevance of what you're doing is very short lived,
mm. True.
and this constant learning process is
Mm,
no more you know a thing of okay, I should do it. It is a necessity now.
mm,
You really cannot stop yourself from, so there's nothing like, oh, I do this course and it's going to land me a job and I can continue for another 5 years. You're going to be redundant in not more than maybe a few months with the
mm,
kind of technology that is coming around. And it is amazing that I refer to one of the websites which actually talks about new tools that are coming up, future
mm,
tools that are coming up, and I am amazed that every day one new tool is added there. It is amazing how things are changing. It was not happening before. this is
yeah.
this is a revolution that we're looking at, and this is going to continue for a long time, uh, for at least till I grow old and be out of my working years. It will continue to grow, and
Yeah.
and so there is no option. One has to continue to learn,
Mm,
and this kind of information can be taken only from people who are in touch with the industry, who are either working there or constantly interacting with them, like yourself. Now, the other question that I have is, and most of the professionals in today, now the way the technology is coming in, like I said, every day one new tool is being added. A lot of freelancing is now the in thing. Uh, a lot of HR professionals also have this doubt that the market is exhausted, it is saturated for HR professionals because there's so much a technology can achieve. So if probably a work was required to be done by, let's say, a team of 10 people can now be done by 5, and so slowly and gradually that market is getting saturated, and companies do not want so many of HR professionals. What do you think about that?
So yes, I mean, so last, if you look at from November when Chat GPT got launched, and Bard came next, and now there are so many names that you just can't remember, right? So yes, last 7 8 months have been, I think, one of the most fascinating part of at least my life that I have lived in terms of seeing what's changing, right, professionally and
Mm.
work wise, right? I think I was too young to realize that computer got introduced, right? I was probably not there when we had buses replacing the tangawalas and the people, so it has always happened.
Yes.
It's not happening for the first time. Let's also understand
Yes,
that,
that's true.
right?
That's true.
And are we moving towards the progress? Yes, we are moving towards the progress. Are we prepared to move toward the progress? That is a very, very individual question to ask, right? Professionally, at least, right? So, am I as a professional ready to learn? I'm as a professional, am I ready to invest time? How am I learning? Where am I learning? There are so many ways of learning. You can have a YouTube video to learn, or you can have an Insta reel to learn, right?
Absolutely.
But are you really learning, right?
Yes.
So a lot of times what also happens is that we have to understand that I always compare this to, let's say, it's because people can relate to it, to this example is introduction of computers, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I remember my father telling me that there was banks where there were no computers and there were accountants sitting in, and cashiers, and they would mark how much money got deposited, and they
Fill
would
in the ledgers.
yeah. And then we had railway reservation counters where there were no computers, and quotas were
Yeah.
fixed for every
Yes.
station, and they could only give so many tickets, even if somebody was not traveling, and all that. And then now you didn't need 10 people issuing tickets. You didn't need 10 cashiers,
Yeah.
managing 1,000 accounts of the bank, but you needed that one guy with computer who could
Mm.
manage 1,000 accounts, right?
Mm.
So I think uh, that is where we are right now, right?
Yes.
You don't need, uh, and it is eventually it's going to happen, and it is going to happen everywhere. It is
Yeah.
when I say anything that has a computer involved, right,
Mm.
or a machine involved, right? We'll see in next 5 to 10 years they will see this happening. And when I say next 5 years, it is also happening right now, right? It's not that it's not happening right now. Yeah. So if videos can be created in seconds, if presentations can be created in seconds, if data can be analyzed in seconds, if prompts can be perfected in seconds. Now you have AI tool. I was just exploring, and there is a AI tool called Prompt Perfect, which can perfect the prompt that you are giving, right? So it can
Wow.
help you write better prompts, right? So you can chat with a PDF, right?
Yes.
You can have a product tool, you can have a website developed, you can have an app developed. So yes, so from an HR perspective, now there are two elements. First is, what are
Mm.
we supporting? So let's say I am supporting a team of 500 software developers, right?
Mm.
Now, and they have X amount of work, right? So if there is X amount of work, and using AI or leveraging AI, now if let's say 150 software engineers can do that, then probably I can still support, and probably I using AI leveraging tool, I can probably now cater to 1,000 people instead of 500, which basically means that if two people were needed, I have taken away that one HR job, though I still have job because I understand AI, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you go by, so for me, you will, if people laugh or they feel that how can somebody does not know computer, right? uh, how you don't know aspects of analytics and AI
Yeah.
in human resource or anywhere, it
Yeah.
would it, it would be the same element 5 or 10 years down the line. That is
Yes.
how the younger folks would see us, or maybe where we stand would be defined by how well we know it, how
Yeah.
well we know it. You may
Mm.
know how to open an Excel file, you may know how to open a Word file, you may know how to open a PPT, but how well you need to know how to work on it defines how you were working before. The same
Yeah.
way, how well you know AI, and how well you know AI. I mean, you have to eventually master it, right? Otherwise, you would be left behind. You have to understand analytics and the value it brings. These would be two key things that would make you stand out: your
Yeah.
understanding of AI and your understanding of analytics, right?
Yeah.
And we are at that point, and there is not much time uh, to, to ponder upon it, right? I
Yeah.
would
That's true.
advise people to look at a organized learning. Not, I mean, you can learn. I mean, people have different learning styles, but if you've not learned so far, and if you've not opened web pages, looking at that and tried and tested, etc., and even if you're looking at figuring it out, it takes time. Like, just imagine figuring out a path without a Google map, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
having a Google map work for you, right? That
Yeah.
is where I think programs and certifications, and a proper certification, not a Insta reel or a YouTube video. It's important that you are able to you invest in that, and because remember, skill is a developed ability, right? So when you learn
Yes,
today, develop it over a period of time, right?
yes,
The later you learn, from there your journey starts, right?
yeah.
So that is something that I would always advise, and I'll tell that this is like
So,
a moment in history of mankind, what we are experiencing right now.
so the earlier you accept it, the earlier you will start, and the earlier, the faster you will stand in the queue.
Mhm.
And one has to understand really that job markets are changing. It's not going to be the same. The skill sets and the demands of organizations are changing. So, very quickly, if you can tell us, how does CHRMP stand differently amongst the other certification programs that are being offered?
Um, so, um, so what is very interesting, Celeste, is in fact, let me start with maybe not talking about CHRMP right now, but because you mentioned designation, let me talk about one of the designations I had never expected I would ever see in my life in human resource, right?
Mm-hmm.
And and this is, I mean, I was going through something and I saw a designation called HR prompt engineer, right? And for me,
I've never
HR
heard
and
of that.
engineer coming together was like, how can this happen, right? And but it's true,
What was
because
that?
prompt engineering is catching up really well, because through prompts you can get things done, and wrong
Mm,
prompts would delay, or wrong prompts would destroy, and right prompts would make things happen. And that's true for HR as well. So eventually, finally, there is a designation, and I was just taken aback. Now, and there are so many other things that are there. If you look at, I mean, if you just look at the kind of designations that we are seeing today in human resource, it is we have there is a designation called work from home facilitator. There is a director of well-being. There is a designation called HR data detective. There is a designation called HR business continuity officer. There's a designation called chatbot and human facilitator. There is HR
wow.
algorithm officer is another designation that fascinates me. There is
Wow.
VR immersion officer, adaptive learning manager, employee experience manager, workplace environment architect. I mean, if you, and these are all possibilities for HR professionals, but how well you
Amazing.
know them
Amazing.
is important, right?
Yeah.
And the beauty is that half of the new age designations have a high dose of analytics and AI in it, right?
A
Uh,
very high dose, in fact.
so if somebody ever felt that analytics was for HR analysts, gone are the days. Analytics is for HR professionals. AI is for HR professionals. Generative AI is different. It's not a specialist AI. It's not you playing with a computer and computer responding only in a particular manner. It is generating. It is generating. It is learning every time. It is responding. It is learning. It is improving. It is enhancing its capability. Generative AI is very, very different. You need to have uh, much deeper view. And I think now, coming to CHRMP, I think we are at forefront of it. We were the first one
Mm,
to launch a generative AI certification in human resource.
yeah.
I can proudly say that our HR analytics certification, I've compared it with the best certifications in the industry. We are the best. The way we
Mm,
are teaching analytics, the topics that we are covering, the way we are looking at it getting implemented, the focus on the tools that we have, and not too many tools, not to make your brochure look multiple logos. It is about knowing what tools is working, and mastering
yes.
one tool rather than jack of all trade. I mean, so we have
Yes.
really crafted and constantly updated our curriculum. I
Yeah.
mean, if you look at, this is our seventh year of the HR analytics certification, and we have 9 versions of the program that we have drafted and updated. In 7 years, we have improved our curriculum 9 times, right? We have a HRBP certification, where the amount of strategic content that we have gone about adding, and the way we have gone about updating the uh, curriculum, etc., is also, it has happened at a completely different level. And with generative AI, I think we took the lead and we are seeing great response. So the key here is that there are a lot of legacy certification, right?
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
the way certification business has worked in the world is you certify and then you certify in huge number and then you keep recertifying, right? And
Hmm.
because now there is a community, people are getting certified and people are getting recertified. And now because that's the main uh, uh, that's where the
That,
money is coming from, or that is where the business is. Or I'm not saying they're ill intention. What I'm trying to tell you is that it's an old thought,
yeah.
right? And that's not giving pace, right, to how things would shape up, right? You can have great elements talking about the strategic part of human resource and thought leadership of HR, but unless your content doesn't really teach how it is done on ground, right,
Yeah.
then it is just a certification exam that you are giving and maybe getting a certificate that you can be happy about, but you would have to still figure it out on the you will again
So
invest.
basically,
That is where
teach. Yeah.
CHRMP is different. It is not a legacy certification, it's a new age certification. The focus is teaching strategy and its application on ground. So
Yeah.
you hit the ground running in terms of that, right? And that is what makes a hell lot of difference in terms of what we do and how we do it.
So basically, it's the important thing is to help the man fish for as
Yeah.
long as he can instead of
Yeah.
constantly doing certifications after certifications. Thank you very much for that information, Animesh. Any last words for our HR professionals across board? I'm not just talking about the newcomers, across board.
So I think the I have a word of caution for everyone, right?
Uh-huh.
And also a few motivating also the silver lining, right?
Yes.
So the word of caution is that the world is changing, right?
Uh,
And if I could put a beware board right now, yes, caution and beware in red signs in font size 48, maybe italics and bold and all that is something that world is changing. It's changing too fast. It
yeah.
is changing at a speed which you cannot comprehend. And
Yeah.
you would be little late to comprehend because your roles are not IT heavy or technology heavy,
Mm.
right? It is people heavy, it's process heavy, it's transactional, more transactional, right? And also, even if it's strategic, there is less of so somebody who acts faster is certainly the lead, right? It's like that F1
Mm.
where somebody who has the pole position, right? So now the question is, do you have the pole position or not? And the way to get to the pole position is by leveraging technology, by equipping yourself with skill that would stay at least your lifetime,
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
Your work next 15, 20, 25, 30 years, right? And
Mm.
equip yourself with understanding of what business partnering is, what competency is, what employee experience is, what analytics is, which is very important. What How can you leverage generative AI in HR? Equip yourself with all these things, and if the moment you are equipped, you will figure your way out, because
That's true.
uh, if you know swimming, you will find a pool, or you will swim in the sea, or you will swim somewhere. But the key is learning how to swim,
That's
right?
true.
That is the key, right? And the silver lining is that HR is one of the areas where the world is evolving, and I would again reflect back to the designations that I was mentioning, right? which
Mm.
which vertical in have you seen such fancy names or so many new designations coming in, right? So if 60 to 70% of talent acquisition jobs would be lost, or jobs in talent development and HR operations would go, or a lot of jobs would be lost, and that's largely because the number of people we will support would be less, and also our jobs would reduce because we a lot of people would start using better tools and better technology.
Yeah.
But it is also about these new areas that are coming in, areas to watch for our workforce scoping, culture, data and analytics, employee experience, and if you understand the job descriptions, if you understand the skills, if you understand the competencies that would take you there, and if you have it in them, you would get the first mover benefit, right? So very, very important that you invest in upskilling yourself, you have a positive worldview and not get scared. It's not that all economies are shrinking. There are economies that are growing well. There is a fear in the market, but at the same time you have your own individual equity. If you build on your equity, you will have work to do, you will have hikes, you will have appraisals, you will have growth, you will have you will have challenges that you would love solving. uh,
Yes.
uh, and the path to that is learn quickly and start applying right away, right? Do not ponder, do not think, do take action, and at the same time be the experiment at the workplace, right? That's also very important, because unless you don't experiment, you don't have learning, right? So try
Yeah, that's true.
experimenting at workplace, try figuring out things at workplace, try doing getting new perspective in new place, and how you can do, especially people who are working for ages like 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, they
Yeah.
for them to break the way they have been, their careers have shaped up would be quite challenging, right? So they have to start initiating and implementing and doing things, and that is very, very important, right? This is the moment when, as I said, the pole position awaits you. uh,
Yeah.
how you plan to get there is very, very important, right? And that would
And
give you
such
the lead.
opportunities and such opportunities come arrive at your doorstep very few times in history. So
Yes.
you're making history basically right
Yes,
now.
yes, absolutely, absolutely. And this would be, I mean, just like how competency was the word which would get you a job 5 years back immediately, right? And
Yeah.
analytics is that now, and AI is and analytics and AI, and these are the trend would just continue. So if you have content to talk about it and discuss it, and the interviewer learns from you because you know
Mm.
it, right?
Yes,
I think that
that's
is
very
that is very important.
true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think being a very non-technical person myself, when ChatGPT was just introduced, and I was reading the news, and I got onto a podcast which was called ChatGPT, and it would give the latest news as to what is happening. And they said, "Oh, ChatGPT is going live for beta testing, and everybody's on there." So I remember myself being on the waiting list, and today I see myself completely immersed in what's happening in the technology world. In
Right.
fact, today itself, when I was working, I realized that I tested approximately 3 or 4 new applications,
Mm-hmm.
and which I wouldn't do 15 years ago. I wouldn't do as a new L&D professional, with completely new perspective. First of all, I'm learning the task
Mm-hmm.
that I have trained myself on, and on top of that, oh well, now I have to learn technology. So, being a non-technical person myself, I have taken a long time to understand that. But because I started early, I was pretty much, like I had a pole position, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
But there are a lot of people who are still sort of, taking a
Mm-hmm.
step back, thinking, "Acha, we'll see what happens now. Let's see
Mm-hmm.
what happens. It'll come and go. It's a new fad." Which I think you've clarified it enough, Animesh, that this is not a fad. This is here to stay.
Yeah,
The sooner
absolutely.
we,
I mean,
the
now,
sooner
in fact, somebody who was not good with numbers, somebody try code interpreter on ChatGPT, and I would suggest you also try it. You can have your entire training data uploaded, and the kind of inferences
Absolutely.
it would give you, the kind of the in-depth understanding of that data it would give you. It's fascinating. It's really, really fascinating, right? And it would have taken you a week
Fascinating. Very
or more to
fascinating.
figure out. what that data meant. And now here, in by few clicks and typing a bit, you have a graph and a chart coming in and telling you of what has happened. And this is, so that is where we are heading, right? Uh, and the world looks fascinating to me, Celeste. I think I'm very, very excited about the possibility
Yes.
that yes, 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 it's
I'm
that
very
is
excited
good.
too. In fact, every day is exciting when I'm creating my content and trying to reach out to people. So yeah, the sooner we get onto it, the sooner we will be in that pole position. Thank you so much, Animesh, and I hope everybody who is listening to this will have acquired some good amount of information in the HR domain. And similarly, we bring in a lot of experts from different domains to talk about their experiences and talk about what's happening in their world. I would recommend to stay in touch and constantly see our updates on LinkedIn. Please subscribe to our channel on YouTube so that you are aware of what's happening and what kind of new information we're uploading on the regular basis. So, thank you very much, Animesh, for being on the Real Talk today and giving our viewers a lot of good information that is going to be valuable
Thank you,
for them.
Celeste. It is always a treat talking to you. Thank you for inviting, and I had such great interaction. Thank you so much for that. Yeah.
Thank you so much.